everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick SWAT Media. This is your host, Ryan Coyle, joined today by Joseph Kmetz, as well as Mike Coyle in his Beef Up Front debut for our weekly show, the College Football Big Five Games of the Week. Welcome back, Joe, and how are you?
I'm great. I'm real excited. Got the legend Mike Coyle hopping on a show with us. I can't wait.
How are you, Father? How are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Excited. Thanks for having me.
All right. Before we get into this week's games, we'll go over last week's slate. Joe, you had a great week last week. You went 5-0 on your straight up picks, 3-2 against the spread, 1-4 with your over under. So that's still your work in progress. 0-1 on your upset and 0-1 on the best bet. That puts you to 24-1 on the year. So doesn't get much better than that at the average slate. Last week I went 3-2 straight up, 2-3 against the spread, 2-3 over under, 0-1 in the upset special, and I finally hit my best bet last week, going 1-0. So an 8-9 week for me. 21-27-1 on the year. Still rebounding from that poor week 0 start, but we got another really good slate ahead of us here today, and we'll start off with Oklahoma, number 6 ranked in the country at 2-0 at Nebraska, who is 1-2, 12 o'clock on Fox. Oklahoma comes in as an 11.5 point favorite, over under 67. Mike, you want to start us off with who you like in that one?
Sure. This is a big game. I remember as a kid, it would be played every Friday after Thanksgiving, and it usually was for the Big 8 championship. These guys were the two power programs there. They had great games of college football history. Mike Rozier, Irving Fryer, Turner Gill, Tom Rathman from Nebraska, Billy Sims, Keith Jackson, Oklahoma. That's some legendary coaches, Barry Switzer and Tom Osborne. I love Nebraska in this game. I think they're going to play out for the new coach that's going to be there. It was time for Frost to go. I heard a ridiculous stat today that in one-score games, they were 5-22. That's why you got fired, buddy. Too many onside kicks, so you shouldn't be doing it. He wanted to be the play caller. He brings a guy in this year, doesn't like what the guy's doing, so that's that. So I have Nebraska 28, Oklahoma 21, so that's Nebraska plus 11 and under 67.
I'm going to roll with you too there, Mike. I got Nebraska winning this one as well, 33, Oklahoma 31. So give me Nebraska with the 11.5 and under 67. My prediction here is firmly based on my belief that teams always play harder and more loose and more free after their head coach is fired and they get the interim guy in there. You see it all the time in the NFL. I feel like the team always wins the next week. I don't know if Nebraska really like playing for Frost because you don't lose, I think, 2 out of your first 3 games when you're double-digit favorites, including one to Georgia Southern. And they were getting tested for most of the game against North Dakota as well. So when you're a team that has that much talent, if you must just not be playing hard for your coach is my thinking. So this would be an ironic victory, as you said, Mike, how Frost really sucked in close games, but I have them winning on a last-minute field goal, 33-31, kind of flipping the fortune there. I think Thompson has really flashed promise in some time at quarterback so far for Nebraska. He's shown they can move the ball. They put up 492 yards per game so far this year, but they haven't been able to stop a soul allowing 492 yards per game as well. So this is just a gut feeling for me, and I think the crowd is really going to be rocking at home in this old-school rivalry, especially with Frost going. So give me Nebraska there. Joseph, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I'm going to go against you two. I have Oklahoma winning this game 27-24. I think Nebraska covering is a lock, though. I will agree with you two. I have Oklahoma winning, on a late field goal, kind of like you have Nebraska winning Coyle. This is the first real test for the Sterling Venerables. While I'm not buying them long-term this season, I do think they're going to be able to hold serve in Lincoln. But like you guys, said, you guys, are kind of already beating it over the head. You're playing for a new coach. They're going to be amped up. The crowd's going to be crazy. This is a crowd that, was embarrassed last week, losing to Georgia Southern, losing in week 0. They just got rid of a god-awful coach. By the way, Scott Frost, outside of his 13-0 year at UCF, was 22-38. Not great. Not the reason why, that's the reason why he got fired. I just think Oklahoma's defense is going to, take a big step up, make a late stop. This Nebraska team, I still think, needs to get the stink of Scott Frost off of them. I think they're going to turn it around and have a solid season. I just don't think it starts here.
All right, so we got everyone taking Nebraska plus 6 or plus 11.5, and everyone with the under. Me and Mike going Nebraska to win. Joe taking the Sooners. We'll go to Eugene, Oregon now with number 12 BYU at 2-0 at number 25 Oregon, who's 1-1, 3:30 on Fox. Oregon's a 3.5-point favorite in this one, over under 57.5. Joe, you want to start us off here?
I got BYU winning this game 38-33. You know, my one rule is that I will never bet on Bo Nix, no matter how good Oregon is. I guess I can't do it. I've bet on him for too long. He screwed me over too much. I can't bet on him anymore. I think BYU, is going to win this game. They beat Baylor last week without their top two receivers, and I saw on Sports Illustrated that I believe they're getting them both back, or at least Gunnar Romney, who was their top receiver coming into the season. So I think that's going to be the difference. I think BYU is legit. Jaron Hall's a very good quarterback. I stayed up and watched the entirety of the BYU Baylor game on my phone at like 2 in the morning. I was watching the game. It was a really exciting game. I love BYU. I think they're going to be great going into the Big 12 next year. And I think this is going to be another signature win they can add on their belt. This is also an Oregon defense that allowed Stetson Bennett to pick them apart. And, Stetson Bennett has a great team around him, but we don't really know how great of a quarterback he really is. That being said, though, I think Oregon's going to play a lot better than week one. I just don't think it's going to be enough.
I agree. I like BYU in this one, too. I'm taking them 35-30 over Oregon, so BYU plus a 3.5, over 57.5. This is a big coin flip game for me, though. I don't know what really to make of it, as Oregon looked so bad against Georgia week one, and then they beat up on Eastern Washington last week, as they should. But what will they do against a team that we believe is a potential playoff contender, Joe? Bo Nix, will he fold under the pressure again? BYU showed last week that they can play some defense, and they're not just going to be a high-scoring team. They held Baylor to only 289 yards of offense, which was pretty impressive based off what Baylor did in week one. I think BYU doesn't want to make this a low-scoring game like last week's game, and they would rather win in like a shootout style. With that being said, I think turnovers are going to be the key in this one if they're going to be going up and down the field, and I can't trust Bo Nix to take care of the ball for all 4 quarters, so I'm going to take BYU outright, but plus the 3.5, and keep their playoff hopes alive. What do you think about this game, Mike?
I like Oregon in this one. I think they have too many ESPN 300 players on these teams. The linebackers are great. They have really good offensive linemen. I think that Dan Lanning will have these guys ready to go. Georgia was a little bit overwhelming, and I'm not real sure what happened there. There's no way they're that much better than them. So I think Lanning will have the boys ready to rock and roll. Bounce back game for Bo Nix, and he leads Oregon to the win. The team speed is too much for BYU. Oregon can fly all over the place. I have Oregon 31, BYU 24. So that's Oregon minus the 3.5 and under 57.5.
All right, we'll go to our third game of the week now down in Raleigh, North Carolina. 2-0 Texas Tech traveling to number 16 NC State, who's also 2-0. 7 o'clock on ESPN2. NC State minus 10, over under 55.5 in this one. I'll start us off here. I'm going to take NC State 31, Texas Tech 24. So we're going to go Tech plus the 10 under 55.5 there. Tech First State, our favorite game in college sports year after year. Tech with an impressive victory last week, I thought, over Houston in double overtime. With Houston coming into the year was viewed as like a dark horse playoff contender. If there was going to be a group of 5 team, they were the team that was looked at as potentially that unit. So that's a big win for them as they're in a new regime here under Joe McGuire. New Tech staff appears to have them going in the right direction. This is going to be a big test for them, though, as they go to NC State, playing what we think is a true contender for the ACC crown. NC State probably should have lost that week 1 game to East Carolina in that ugly affair with all the missed kicks at the end. But they might have picked up some confidence last week as they went out and beat Charleston Southern 55-3. Maybe got some of their mojo back. Tech is throwing the ball for 411 yards a game through 2 weeks, and NC State's only allowing 190 yards per game through the air. So this game, I think, is most likely going to come down to the passing offense of Texas Tech versus the passing defense of NC State. I think in road games, though, you have to be able to control the clock more and run the football, and that really isn't the identity of this Texas Tech team right now. So I'm going to take NC State at home 31-24, so Tech plus 10, under 55.5. What are your thoughts on this one, Mike?
I love Tech in this spot. I think Joey McGuire is really bringing in some big-time players there and changing the culture down there. You know, he's been a Texas high school legend and the head of, like, the High School Coaches Association, so he's got connections everywhere, and he's going to have these guys ready to go. And I don't trust State ever in a big spot. They come up sometimes, and they play in the ACC, which I don't think is a great conference, and I just don't think they're going to have enough for Tech. So I think their defense for Tech's going to be flying all over the field, and I think Donovan Smith will have a big day. He needs to cut down on the interceptions a little bit if they want to get out of Raleigh with a win. But I have Texas Tech 28, NC State 24. So Tech plus the 10, under 55.5.
I'm going against you guys with I have State covering the 10 points. I have NC State winning this game 31-20. Texas Tech's come off a huge, emotional double overtime win versus a ranked Houston team. Like you said, Ryan, it's like the third time in my life I called you Ryan. That's weird. But, they were a playoff dark horse from the G5, kind of like how Cincinnati was last year. Texas Tech gets a huge win over them. But that being said, they got this game at NC State sandwiched in between that game and a big game next week against Texas. You see a lot of times with these college teams, you're kind of looking ahead a little bit, even though obviously they can't afford to look ahead. I love Devin Leary. Even if he hasn't proved it, I don't know why. I just love Devin Leary. He might be my new Bo Nix, how I love him. But I think there's a huge opportunity to show the country why NC State is a legit playoff dark horse. Like you said, kind of got lucky to come out of East Carolina with a victory. But I think that was kind of a fluky game versus a team that was having their Super Bowl moment. And I think NC State's going to prove why they're actually a pretty legit team.
All right, we'll move on to our fourth game now. We got 11 ranked Michigan State, who's 2-0, at Washington, who's also 2-0, 7:30 on ABC. Washington is a 3.5-point favorite in this one, over under 56.5. What's your thoughts on this matchup, Mike?
I like Washington in this one. I think that Michigan State also, they keep having these big games where they're coming up, and I just think it's their time to be on the losing end of something. I have them. They always seem to find a way to win these close games, but I'm taking Washington here. I think Michael Penix finds a way in one of the toughest places to win in college football. Crowd will be amped up from a long day of tailgating. I have the Huskies winning. Washington 26, Michigan State 20, Washington minus 3.5, and under 56.5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Washington to win this one as well. I got them 35-31 over Michigan State, so a little bit higher score in here. Washington minus 3.5, over 56.5. Saw this at Bet Stats today on Twitter. I thought it was a telltale sign. Michigan State has failed to cover a regular season game versus a Pac-12 opponent dating back to 2008. They're 0 for 5 against the spread in regular season games versus the Pac-12 during that stretch, which I think is very interesting. Also, in my opinion, pretty crazy to see Washington. I know they're home, but as a favorite over their number 11 team in the country here when they aren't ranked, that line is kind of telling me that Washington's going to win, and I think win pretty handily. I think this is a game Washington's going to kind of control, and Michigan State might make a little bit of a comeback at the end. I really liked Michael Penix at Indiana. He had that great 2020, then got injured. Then last year was rough. I don't think he was fully back from the injury when he got thrust back into the lineup. It looks like he is having a bit of a revival here with the Huskies, and he's a fun, exciting player to watch. He had that really great game against Penn State back in 2020 that I remember a lot. So neither team has been really tested yet, as they've both combined to play 3 MAC teams, as well as Washington has played Portland State. Michigan State only allowing 6.5 points per game, though. So it's going to be a good test for Washington, who's averaging 48 points per game so far in the season. But when in doubt, I like to ride with the home favorite. So give me Washington there, 35-31 with the over hitting, and they cover the 3.5.
I have Washington winning this game 24-21. This is one of those games where, as a college football fan, I love, but as a gambler and a bad gambler at that, I'm not touching this game. I think Michigan State's going to cover the 3.5. I think the game's going to go under, but I can also see this game going the complete opposite way because I just don't buy Peyton Thorne at quarterback. He only has 4 touchdowns, so 3 interceptions, and like you said, Coyle, going up against Western Michigan and Akron so far, not what you want to see out of a quarterback who is supposed to take the next step this year. Washington's a huge step up in competition. The Huskies have an opportunity to go and grab a signature win after getting embarrassed last year. Coyle, you and I both had them in the Pac-12 title game when we did our preseason previews last year. They were terrible. They lost to Montana week 1, who's FCS. I think the Spartans are going to get a little bit exposed without having Kenneth Walker in the backfield this year. So give me the Huskies by a late field goal. Like Mike said, I think Seattle's going to be rocking for Washington. Long day of tailgating. It's going to be a great atmosphere. And a game that, it's kind of a weird game. I feel like this is a game Coyle, like I've alluded to before, like you play an NCAA football, but I would almost never expect to see on the field. I think this is really cool, and it's a great game for college football.
Yeah, this was probably one of those games back in like 2014 that they locked up with the future contract for 2022. It's probably like a return game down the line. But looking at Washington's schedule going forward, if they win this one, the only, as of right now, ranked team on their schedule the rest of the way is Oregon in November. Like, they have a good chance to potentially run the table, and they could be one of these dark horse teams. So this is the biggest game of their season, I think, going forward. If they're able to win this, they have a good chance to run the table in the Pac-12 because they don't even have to play USC, and we don't really know what to make of Oregon right now. So big game there for the Huskies. We'll go to our fifth game of the week now. Number 13, Miami, who's 2-0 at Texas A&M, who's ranked 24 in the country at 1-1, 9 o'clock on ESPN. A&M is a 5.5-point favorite, over under 45. This game would have been a hell of a lot better, more hyped up if A&M hadn't lost to App State. But I'll get into my thoughts on this one first. I wore my Miami shirt to work today. I left it on for the show for this reason. I'm taking them 27-23 over A&M. Miami plus 5.5. We take the over 45 there. I think last week to lose at home to Appalachian freaking State as an 18-point favorite is a disgrace and a major blow to the direction of that program. Coming into last year, they had a lot of hype. They weren't that great out of the gate, but then they found a way to beat Bama. You thought maybe that would pick up them some momentum with the great recruiting class as well. When you recruit this well, there's no excuse for you to lose to a Sun Belt team. Miami still has life, though, in their direction for the season. They might be the best team in the ACC, as we were talking about earlier with NC State. It's a major question mark. I'm not sold on Clemson due to the offense and DJ at quarterback. So I think this is a huge game for Miami if they want to be a playoff team. You don't know what you're getting under center for the Aggies each and every week, and that has been their problem these last few years under Jimbo Fisher. So I'm going to take the better coach, in my opinion, with Mario Cristobal and the better quarterback with Tyler Van Dyke to go on the road and officially end the Aggie season and put them in like the coffin. I think if Miami finds a way to win this game, you'll see things spiral out of control there in College Station and maybe even lead to like a 7-5 season and a potential firing of Jimbo Fisher. But Joe, what are your thoughts on this game?
There's no way A&M's losing. I'm in the camp like there's no way A&M loses this game. I have them winning 28-21, so I have A&M covering the 5.5. I'm taking the over the 45. Aggies have their backs up against the wall. They've been embarrassed all week, lose to a Sun Belt team. You have that terrible yell leader video that's been going around Twitter. Like they apparently do it before every home game, and they try
That's
to like
horrible.
they're trying to like make fun of like the team they're playing against, and it was just like a tough video to watch. They're trying to be funny. They're terrible. It sucked. If Jimbo loses this game, if he's not already on the hot seat, being 1-2, staring down the barrel of an SEC schedule, he will be on the hot seat. Because, if A&M loses this game, you start to kind of look ahead. You don't really know how many more wins you're picking out. Also, now on the edge of the transfer portal, that number one recruiting class that he brought in last year could very easily bounce if this season, like you said, Coyle, goes sideways. I think Jimbo rallies the troops and gets a monster win against the Miami team that's in a real tough spot. But that's being said, though, I do love the direction Miami's going in the future. So I think this is a good measuring stick game for Cristobal and how his time in Miami is going to go.
About you, Mike?
I agree. There's no way Texas A&M loses this game. I'm not a huge Jimbo Fisher fan. I was listening to something on the radio this week, and it looks like he's got like 800 cards in front of his face, and none of the plays work. So it's ridiculous. I don't know what he's doing. Cut it down. The offense looks like it's from 2014. But that being said, they have the better players. I do think you may see Haynes King get replaced by Max Johnson this week if they need to get a spark on the offense. But too much speed and sense of urgency for Texas A&M. This will be settled in the fourth quarter. I have A&M 35, Miami 27. So A&M minus the 5.5 and over 45.
All right, we'll move on after our best 5 games of the week. We have now our best bets and our upset special. Mike, you want to start us off with your best bet of the week against the spread?
So Notre Dame is my best bet of the week. Love the Irish in this spot. I mean, they need a win in a bad way, and Cal is not a great Pac-12 team. They're going to be coming to Notre Dame. It's not, Drew Pine is the quarterback now for Notre Dame. He was a high school All-American, and I think this would be a good move. I feel bad for the kid that got hurt, but he was not doing enough on offense. I think the Irish offense will come alive and beat Cal. Notre Dame 31, Cal 17.
Joe, what about you?
My best bet of the week is UCLA minus 15.5. They're playing South Alabama. I think UCLA is a lot better than people are giving them credit for. They just haven't played anybody yet this season, and being out on the West Coast, being the number 2 college team in LA behind USC, not a lot of people are paying attention. We saw that video when they played Bowling Green. I know it was like a noon kick local time. It was like 110 degrees, but there might have been, they announced 20,000, but it didn't even look like there was 10,000 people at the game, which is kind of pathetic playing in the Rose Bowl, seeing it so empty. It looked almost like a COVID game. But that being said, South Alabama's played an FCS team in Nichols College, and they beat Central Michigan, who put up a lot of points late against Oklahoma State, but didn't really impress me. I've always liked Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and I feel like at some point all that experience kind of has to come together. And I think this is the season, UCLA is going to show some people that they're better than they think. I think UCLA is going to potentially get 10 wins this season. I think they're going to cover this number pretty easily. And keep the eye out for the Bruins in the Pac-12, maybe getting in as that second team into the Pac-12 championship game.
All right. I'm going to go with under 73.5 in the Fresno State USC game. My best bet last week was under 72.5 in the Kent State Oklahoma game, and that was only, I think, a 36-point total at the end. A lot of people were on the over with that one, so I'm going to fade the public again with this one. I think the public's going to be all over the over with a USC game with Caleb Williams, and then you look at Jake Haener, one of the better group of 5 quarterbacks in the country, a potential NFL guy. But I think Jeff Tedford's a really good coach. He's known for his offensive acumen, but I think he knows he doesn't have the horses to play with USC for 4 quarters and beat them in a shootout. So I think he's going to try and play a ball control type offense in this one, keep the passing game really short and simple, work the ball methodically down the field, and that's going to give us a low total in this one. I wouldn't be surprised to see it be like 35, like 32 type game, but still enough for it to stay under that 73.5. That's a really big number. So we're gonna go under 73.5, Fresno State USC for my best bet. And now we'll get to the upset special. Joe, you want to start us off with this one?
Yeah, my upset special is Western Kentucky over Indiana. They come in at plus 195. There's plus 6.5 points on the spread. Indiana has impressed me. They're a very phony 2-0. They should have lost to Illinois. They had a couple, calls go their way late that, were kind of toss-up, kind of suspect. And they only beat Idaho, who's now back down in FCS by 13 points. Give me the Hilltoppers offense to go score a lot in Bloomington. They're going to pull out the upset. I just don't like Indiana. I think they were frauds during the COVID year, and that's propped them up for the past 2 years. And I just think that they're a bad program, and they're going to lose this game.
All right, my upset special, I'm going to go with UTSA plus 340 at Texas. They come in at 12.5-point dogs. I'm picking them to win outright here for the upset special. When I went on ESPN, I think it was Sunday morning before the NFL started, there was like an article that was like Texas shakes up the college football world or something was like the headliner. And they still lost the game against Alabama. So that's like one of those games where I feel like now everyone's going to be hype on Texas. People are going to be kind of all over them thinking they did so well. But just knowing, like having been in like situations like this before, this is like a letdown spot, in my opinion, for Texas. And they have it's no rollover team in UTSA. That's a good football team who took Houston to the brink, a top 25 team. I could see just a big emotional letdown spot here after Texas had that game. You just knew Alabama, though, if they got the ball back with enough time, was going down and kicking a field goal. They did just that. I just feel like that's a real deflating loss, especially also with the Quinn Ewers news. They looked awesome with him out on the field. Now they got Hudson Card. Offense didn't look nearly as good with him out there leading the way. So I like the Roadrunners this week, and I think that could be a game that actually shakes up the college football world with a UTSA beating a Texas. So that's my upset special for the week. Mike, you want to finish this out?
Brian, I agree totally with that UTSA bet. I love them. I think Texas is going to be flat as a pancake this week. And that's a good team that's going in there right now. So that could be a major problem for Texas. So, but I have, as we talked about earlier, mine is Texas Tech. I think they go to NC State and get a win. I think Joey McGuire, like I said, is going to have this team playing getting 8-9 wins a year moving forward because he's going to get so many good recruits. But I think they go up to NC State and catch them napping, and they get out of there with a victory. I think Devin Leary struggles this week, and again, I do not ever trust NC State in a big spot. So that's kind of what I have for my Texas Tech plus 285.
All right. I'm going to throw in a $5 parlay this weekend with UTSA, Western Kentucky, and Texas Tech. That should pay out a few $100 there. But all right, that'll do it for college football show for Beef Up Front for week 3. You guys have any last second comments before we head out?
I mean, listen, this is one of those weeks that people will tell you that it's not a great slate. Listen, college football, those are the weeks where the most chaos happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like last week, no one was expecting Marshall to go in and beat Notre Dame. No one was expecting Texas to almost beat Alabama. No one was expecting App State, Georgia Southern. I can go on and on. There's going to be upsets this week. That's how it always happens. It's the weeks where you don't think something's going to happen. So at the end of the day, it's college football. Don't let people tell you what's a good slate, what's a bad slate. We have college football. That's all that matters.
Mike?
I agree, Joe. You got to play who's in front of you every week, and there's always games that are really good that keep you on the edge of the seat, and have you up all night till 2 o'clock in the morning watching them. But I have 2 bold predictions this year. Kansas State wins the Big 12, and I also believe that Matt Rule will be the coach at Nebraska next year.
All right. Well, we got 2 bold predictions to end it off. You know how we end this show. They don't put the bench press at the 50-yard line. We will talk to you.